Hi, welcome to Box on the Box, Rock and Celluloid, Bot Brack for short. Here I am on a Sunday morning nursing a mild hangover, so I'm a bit croaky, and I thought it was a perfect time to talk about my top 10 Star Trek episodes. So I'm going to be talking about the original series. I never minded the spin-offs. I mean, it's Next Gen, I quite like the films, but I just never really got into it. I never watched Deep Space Nine, Voyager, which is interesting because it has a female captain, again showing a lot of progression. And then Enterprise, the credit sequence, was like, oh God. But anyway, and then I've tried getting into Star Trek Discovery, is it, on Netflix, but I just can't get away with it. I watched about 3 or 4 episodes. So I'm an original Star Trek man all the way. So what's interesting about Star Trek, the original series, is it's very front-loaded. The first season's quite extraordinary. In that it's just so good. You've got obviously absolute classic episodes in this season. The kind of secondary episodes would easily grace and beat some of the episodes in season 2, certainly season 3, and even the lesser episodes. There isn't really any. It's quite an extraordinary achievement. And Gene Roddenberry gets a lot of flack. You get the Roddenberry myth, but he was the guy who kind of came up with the concept. And like a lot of great sort of creative people who maybe aren't as brilliant at what they do individually, they can bring people together who are and oversee the whole thing. I think, Roddenberry's Wagon Train to the Stars thing, such a great idea. And obviously it got a second pilot, they shot a pilot, it didn't quite work. And the powers that be obviously saw something in it. Even though it didn't do that great at the time, it just kind of became a cult and beyond on reruns. I started watching, I think, about 1977, probably 78. And the following year we went to see Star Trek The Motion Picture, so it kind of captured me perfectly at that time. I used to go to the neighbours and the farm over the road. But when we went to see Star Trek The Motion Picture, we didn't know what... we didn't quite understand it. It was very cerebral for the Star Trek we were used to on the TV. And, all the cast had put on weight and got older. But anyway, so, I mean, let's just look at some episodes that didn't make the cut in this top 10. Like I said, just going through, in the second episode, Charlie X, which is really good. The Naked Time, that's a great episode. Everyone kind of goes mad. Enemy Within, is that, Kirk gets split into 2 people. It's one of those. One of the problems with Star Trek the series, it kind of replay ideas. So all its kind of ideas again are kind of front loaded. You got episode 13, The Conscience of the King. This nearly made my top 10. I love this. There's a guy who's a Shakespearean actor, but someone recognises him as a war criminal. And actually he's a really decent guy, but he's just in the past. He started off as a good leader and just he's got carried away and it's got worse without him realising, I suppose, and he's kind of hiding out. There's a really good twist at the end. But it's a really good episode. Balance of Terror, this introduces the Romulans cloaking device, stuff that's going to become part of Star Trek lore. Surely, this is a great episode where they go down on a planet and there's things from Alice in Wonderland, really good. Galileo 7, I think this is the episode that really introduces Spock's logic. Spock, there's only enough fuel to get off the planet, they're in a shuttlecraft, and Spock has to decide who to sacrifice, and it's got all classic Spockness. You got Squire Gothos, is episode 17 again. This is another really fun episode. Remember a friend of mine at school loved this. This Side of Paradise, this is again where they end up on a planet and everyone starts behaving weirdly and Spock's like laughing and falls in love and brilliant. And then this next episode I'm going to mention gets kind of slagged apparently. It's not as well thought, but I love it. It's the alternative factor. So they meet a guy called Lazarus, and there's 2 Lazaruses. One from one dimension, one's from the other, but one is antimatter, one is matter. And they cannot meet. If they collide, it will destroy everything. It will just explode the entire universe. And Lazarus is using a time tunnel, and at the end, Lazarus ends up trapped in this tunnel with his antimatter self fighting for eternity, and Spock gets a great line, something towards the effect, a small price to pay for an entire universe. I mean, amazing ending, that idea that this guy's trapped in forever, fighting. It's just horrible. I love stuff like that. I've also got episode 20 here, which is Court Martial, where Kirk gets put on trial. And you got kind of fun stuff. I'm not really into Mudd's women, but, you know, it's good fun. You got Miri, which is a nice episode. Taste of Armageddon. I mean, it's just, you know, there's just... the Taste of Armageddon's good, like people have a virtual kind of battle. And then when one in the computer game, when one wins, they have to terminate some of their side. It's great ideas in this series. They've got a wide spread of writers. So then things kind of, I mean, I'd still enjoy, you know, series 2, I like season 3, but just things kind of tail off. You know, I mean, there's good episodes, but there's kind of episode 30 stands out. Actually, no, we're not going to mention that. I've messed up there, but I'm sorry. Yeah, in season 2, you got episode 32, The Changeling. That's a good episode. Mirror Mirror. Again, it's this one's a good one because they get you have like an alternate universe thing again, and there's kind of Kirk's like he's an evil Kirk and an evil Enterprise, a bit like the episode Inferno by Doctor Who will be comparable to this. And then jumping ahead, you know, you got episode 41, The Deadly Years. They get exposed to radiation and the crew of the Enterprise age. Obsession, episode 42. Season 2 is really good. Kirk comes across a thing on a planet that's killed a previous crew that he's worked with when he's in a lower, you know, he's not a captain. Really good. One I really love, Wolf in the Fold. Scotty gets accused of committing murder on a planet when they're on a bit of recreation, and it turns out it's actually the Jack the Ripper. It's really good. You got The Trouble with Tribbles, 44. It's daft, but I love Tribbles. Piece of the Action's quite good fun. They end up in 1930s Prohibition. And this is kind of one thing that the Star Trek will start to do. They'll start sort of having episodes with Romans and Nazis and stuff like that. And it's kind of fun. But they kind of fall into kind of repetitive patterns. Private Little Wars, I'm afraid, episode 48. This kind of mirrors the Vietnam War. They end up arming a kind of primitive tribe and to give them sort of equality in the war, but it's kind of mirroring colonialism and going in and meddling where he shouldn't, and sort of Kirk questions whether he should, you know. Nice mirror to the Vietnam experience. Series 3 is the one that just, you know, fans kind of, it's rubbish. It's still fun, but it starts off with Spock's brain, which is rated as one of the worst episodes. It's funny, it's worse than Spock's brain. Basically, Spock's brain gets taken out of him, and he ends up like Lobot or something like that in you know, Empire Strikes Back. And I think Lobot's in that, isn't he? And yeah, it's just ludicrous. Paradise Syndrome, still to lead. Some great titles on this. For the Earth is Hollow, Touch the Sky. Yeah, For the World is Hollow, Touch the Sky. I love that title. Perhaps the final episode, Turnabout Intruders, quite funny. This is the one where a doctor who wanted to be a starship captain, takes over Kirk's body. So you have Shatner acting as Shatner, but as an hysterical woman. It's very sexist. It's basically, I think, you know, because Star Trek's progressive. You know, you've got Uhura on the you know, on the deck doing a great job. And you have powerful women in Star Trek, but the female character in this has been driven mad by the fact that she's not been given opportunities that she felt she should. And then she wants to be a starship captain and takes over Kirk's body. Very worth seeing. You know, it's interesting, the synopses here, very short. It's obviously the person who's written the Wikipedia I'm looking at here doesn't like Series 3 as much. Yeah, and then one I did miss out just quickly. Now let me have a look. Is it what little girls are made of. Yeah, so it's episode 7. That's a good one. You've got like robots on a planet. It turns out the doctor they're meeting, he's a robot as well. Really good. So that's kind of my sort of trawl through it. When I was younger, I didn't sort of have a conscious of like what season was what, and kind of not. And I just kind of enjoyed every episode. Really, I kind of still do, because it's Trek. But there's definitely my top 10 when I pick it, which I'm about to do, is it's incredibly front loaded. I shall warn you. But so coming in at number 10, I have episode 1 of season 2, which is episode 13 overall, and this is a mock time. I actually had a book of this when I was younger, bought for me for my birthday by a friend from primary school. It's really good, and it's like the series in picture form, colour pictures, really good. But mock time, Spock has to go to his home planet Vulcan and go through a kind of trial, a ritual. But this is good to introduce T'Pau and T'Pring, obviously part of folklore. Vulcan expands, it introduces the Vulcan ways, the rituals of the planet. It's just really good. It's just kind of, I suppose in Star Trek, folklore, it's got iconic, iconic images and ideas. It was broadcast September 15th, 1967 in the US. I should say when it was broadcast in the UK, some of these episodes came in a different order, I'll come to that. So my next choice at number 9, this is my only one from season 3, but I love this, and it's episode 6, episode 61 overall, Spectre of the Gun. So they, I think they, for trespassing in alien worlds, they'd kind of put on this planet in this scenario that reenacts the shootout, the gunfight at the OK Corral. But I love how this is staged. I would hazard a guess that they've been inspired by the dramatist Bertolt Brecht. So you have kind of stripped down staging, so the saloons kind of got exposed walls and things like that. It's kind of very theatrical. If you've seen a Lars von Trier film called Mandalay, it actually has things written out on the floor and that to say, oh, here we are in the saloon and stuff. And I imagine that comes from the dramatist Bertolt Brecht. Don't quote me on that, it's just a theory I have. It's really good. The other thing this makes great use of is the studio set. So you've got these lovely red filters, and that use of kind of wind and kind of atmospheric noise that they use on Star Trek when they go on a planet, and really good soundtrack. I think people kind of forget that, how atmospheric Star Trek is, how the fakeness of the studio sets almost becomes something awesome with the sound effects and the feeling that you're in an alien world. It's something they did very well. So this is really good, and obviously I think they end up being the Clayton gang basically. I really like this episode. It's just got that Star Trek atmosphere. It's got that vibe that's really good. It's the one episode where it puts them in a kind of historical thing, using characters from history, but it works really well. I mean, later on, people start the episode where he teams up with Abraham Lincoln, but I quite like that episode. That's in season 3. Okay, so my number 8 choice, again, this isn't quite as well thought of, but there's just I just really like it. It's got a great Star Trek folklore character. So it's episode 9, season 2, and it's number 38. It's Metamorphosis. This was first done on November 10th, 1967. It was released. I think the story's by written by Gene L. Kuhn. So this is a really good episode. Zefram Cochrane, they land on the planet and they find a guy and they realise it's Zefram Cochrane. So Zefram Cochrane is the one who takes the first kind of space flight, I think, into kind of hyperspace. Inventor of the warp drive, sorry. And he experiments with that, he's the guy who comes up with warp speed and enables the massive space travel. But he hasn't aged. And it turns out he can't leave the planet, and there's a kind of alien being on the planet keeps him there, but loves him. And what happens is a doctor on the planet who gets ill, who comes down with the ship, and then the alien being kind of melds with her body. So Zefram Cochrane has a companion. It's a really touching love story. But it's just really good. Again, it's got a mystery on the planet, and he's been stuck on the planet his own, but he's had this alien life form presence that's his only friend. I found that really profound. And of course, Zefram Cochrane will appear in First Contact, probably, the only really, really cool next-gen film. So I love that one. That's number 8. So number 7, so this one's an interesting episode. Let me just go back. So this was originally shot as the second pilot. So the first pilot they shot will be used later on. We'll come to that. And then this was shot as the second pilot, but it was queued up as the third episode. But in the UK, this was shown as the first episode. It's Where No Man Has Gone Before. So this was first broadcast September 22nd, 1966, all those years ago. This is interesting because it's got 2 really good actors in it. Sally Kellerman, who looks very beautiful, a beautiful Trek woman, and she was in MASH. I think she plays Hot Lips Houlihan in the original MASH film. But you also got Gary Lockwood, who's one of the astronauts in 2001: A Space Odyssey. He's really good in this. Basically, they are a couple on the ship, and they get something happens, and they get godlike psychic powers which threaten the safety of the crew. Really good. It's that thing that's quite a common Star Trek theme where a member of the crew will get affected by some alien power. It's really good. Again, it's got some cool bits, and it sort of questions morality and things like that. But what's interesting about this, because it's the first episode that was going to be, it's a pilot, the costumes aren't kind of right. They're in kind of brown costumes. It's quite interesting. Obviously, I don't think. Let me see. Yeah. Spock's not in this episode. I believe. And that's just interesting. It hasn't found its total Trekness yet, but the episode's really strong, worth checking out. So I was just going into Wiki just to check that. It's a while since I watched these, but I did watch them fairly recently. Okay, so my number 6 choice is the first episode broadcast. It's a Man Trap, but this actually was shown episode 7, I think, in the UK. This was broadcast September 8th, 1966, so, an important moment in Star Trek history. But this is a great episode. Kirk goes to a planet, and there's one of his former loves is there. But it's not. It's someone posing as that, and it's an alien that lives off salt, and kind of drains. It starts killing off the crew. Classic Star Trek thing. Weird alien kind of parasite type thing kills the crew. Quite a common idea that we'll use later on. Like I mentioned in that episode Obsession before. It's really good. Again, all the kind of Trek things are kind of in place in this. And McCoy's great in this episode. It's written by a guy called George Clayton Johnson. It was the only episode he wrote, but it's really good. So the Man Trap, again, another theme as well is Kirk having some past relationship, with a female, and that kind of affecting things. Really good, and I love the Beast in this. The Beast that is actually, Kirk's old squeeze. The Beast that she is totally realised. So that's a great episode. Okay, then my number 5 choice is again another really important thing in Star Trek folklore. Episode 22, broadcast February 16th, 1967, is Space Seed, and this introduces us to Khan Noon Singh. Khan, obviously from the genetically engineered passengers. He's a war criminal, but again, he will be the basis of the greatest Star Trek film and the greatest science fiction adventure films of all time, The Wrath of Khan. Brilliantly played in this episode, and even better in the film by Ricardo Montalban. Not really much to say about this, but it's a really good episode. But I'm probably got this out because of the Khan character, because he's so important in our Star Trek world. Great, I forget, let's just have a look who wrote this. Gene L. Coon, the teleplay, story by Kerry Wilder, Kerry Wilbur. Kerry Wilbur also wrote the teleplay. Again, Gene L. Coon wrote some great stuff. A guy called Mark Daniels directed this, and he was one of the best directors. Let's go to choice number 4, and again, this is just, if you had to pick an iconic image from Star Trek, this was used in Bill and Ted. It's from Arena, of course. So episode 18, January 9th, 1967. Kirk is sent down on a planet. He has to battle an alien to the death, but he spares him. And he uses those clever survival things. It's a bit like Rambo First Blood. Kirk's brilliant in this. Shatner, it just shows Kirk. He shows his athleticism, his high school jock, captain of the football teamness, but also his humanity. And Shatner's great in him. And Shatner's not a great actor, but he's great as Captain Kirk, and his Shatnerness is in full flow in this. Great episode. My number 3 episode, this is one that really just captured me as a kid, The Devil in the Dark. Again, written by Gene L. Coon, March 9th, 1967. So in this, crew members or people are getting killed in some mines where they're getting silicon. And what it is actually a silicon-based life form. They're actually killing the babies of it. And the silicon-based life form is basically protecting its young. But what's amazing about this, I never knew that I was a carbon-based life form until I watched this episode, and then it's like, we're carbon-based life forms, and on here we have a silicon-based life form. I was like, oh right, I'm a carbon-based life form. So that was awesome, and then introduces the Vulcan mind meld, I believe. So Spock mind melds with the carbon-based life form. Pain! He realises what's been doing, and it's great. It's a great episode, again, showing the humanity, how they think, they're under threat by this creature, but it's just protecting its young, and by understanding the alien life form, it makes things better. Brilliant. Okay, my number 2 episode, and this is fascinating. Basically, it's a menagerie, parts 1 and 2. I'm not cheating there, you've got to watch this as a whole. So the original pilot of Star Trek uses Captain Christopher Pike, who's part of Star Trek folklore. He's played by an actor called Jeff Hunt, who played Jesus in King of Kings. Didn't quite work the pilot. They shot another pilot, which is Where No Man Gone Before, cast William Shatner. History's made, but what they did was they used the footage from this to create this great episode and go into Spock's past. This is brilliant. November 17th, 1966, and November 24th, 1966. This is written by Gene Roddenberry. Great, Talos 4, what a great name. Talos 4 for a planet. I think the amazing thing about this is at the end is Pike's been disabled, severely disabled. Why does he want to go back to the planet? Spock takes him back, Spock knows, and it's because the aliens down there have the power to kind of make you physically imagine you were physically what you were. There's an awful bit where someone's been injured in the spacecraft, Pike's love. She hasn't, she's been injured in a previous thing, but because they didn't know what humans look like, they've put her, back together, wrong for expression. But they can give her the fantasy of beauty, and they can give Pike that, and they can kind of live together in this dream world, really. The aliens are great. They've got big mecon heads, the veins popping, massive intelligence. It's a superb episode. Captures the Spock character brilliantly again. Captures Kirk, that dynamic. McCoy as well. So that is my top 10 nearly, but we've got a mock time 10, Spectre we've got 9, Metamorphosis 8, Where No Man Has Gone Before 7, Mantrap 6, Space Seed 5, Arena 4, Devil in the Dark 3, and a Menagerie 2. You'll notice there, apart from the first 3 choices, they're all season 1. And it's no surprise that it's a season 1 episode. It's my favourite episode of all time. It's a bloody cliche because it's regularly voted the greatest Star Trek episode of all time, and of course it's The City on the Edge of Forever, written by Harlan Ellison. April 6, 1967, magnificent. A land on a planet. It's got like a time tunnel thing that McCoy's gone mad on the ship. He's beamed down onto the planet. He's gone into this time tunnel. They have to chase him into it, and they end up back in kind of Depression era New York. Or is it? Yeah, it is New York, I think. And Kirk falls. While they try kind of find McCoy, this is Kirk and Spock. Kirk comes across a character called Edith Keeler, who's a New York social worker played by Joan Collins, the beautiful Joan Collins. Soft focus. Kirk falling in love. And Kirk falls in love. She is, kind of helps them to find McCoy, or they come across McCoy, but Spock has a gizmo that he's using to kind of get them back to their time, and he discovers that Edith Keeler dies in this time zone, and she needs to die. If she doesn't, bad things will happen. It's really interesting. Edith Keeler's like a really good person, but an alternate timeline will occur if she doesn't die, and that will lead to like kind of bad things, fascism, and that. Probably not Edith Keeler's fault, but as a kind of reaction to her goodness, I think. So it's kind of taking this kind of centrist argument, the middle ground, which is something, in politics we kind of aren't in at the moment. But I think what this episode does, it brings the triangle together, the Kirk, Spock, and McCoy dynamic. And it's a great episode. The ending's really tragic, and the very end's brilliant because the time tunnel thing kind of talks. It's almost like a fairground attraction in space, and they come out of the tunnel, and there's people waiting for the Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. And someone goes, "What? I'm down there." And someone just goes, "Don't ask." And like Kirk's just like really despondent, and it's just like, just a really, really brilliant episode. It's weird. Hugo Award-winning episode number 92 on its list of 100 greatest episodes. A masterpiece of sci-fi. So I'm just looking there, but I think it's regularly, up there. And it's a great episode. Just everything comes together, and it comes right. So that's my number one Star Trek episode of all time. Forgive me for any factual errors. I do love Trek. There'll be Trekkies out there who'll say I've got some things wrong, so forgive me for that. It's been a while since I've watched these. Obviously, I'm trying to look at screen there just to get a bit of intel, but I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again for my top 10 Star Trek films. Thank you. And remember, share and subscribe, ring that bell, as I say. Thank you.